I was born and raised Mogadishu, this beautiful city of East Africa. And 20 years or so ago, in the height of Somali civil war, I was one of these people who fled the country and seeking refuge in other country, other part of the world. And one of the challenge for any refugees, and I'm sure many of you sympathize, those who are now in refugee camps in the neighboring countries, is the feeling of alienated, the feeling of leaving behind what you love. And getting there is quite challenging, but nevertheless, I was able to spend time in Canada, where I saw the refugee, study there, and my study was more or less conflict resolution and peace building. As you can imagine, being born in Mogadishu and left the country, the most issues perhaps dying for me at the time was studying conflict management, conflict resolution, where I studied, and later on, I decided to come back Somalia. But even being there in that part of the world, when I was there, the feeling always wanted me to come back to Somalia and do something about it, particularly the challenges, particularly when you're receiving all these negative messages. And some of the challenges coming back for me was that I need to, contribute the urge that you want to go back to your country. And I'm sure some of you, and those of you who are watching, might want to come back as well. And I think perhaps one of the beauty of today's presentation is perhaps give you an opportunity you can contribute to it. But nevertheless, I was given an opportunity back in 2000 while I was in Canada, and I was asked to evaluate a project of a child soldiers project funded by the Canadian government through Elman B Center at the time. And I came to Mogadishu, that project, to do evaluation a couple of days and go back to Somalia. But I decided to really perhaps stay, and I ended up staying here for 13 more years. To contribute. But what I recall, and I think perhaps the topic today might be one of the themes that resonate many of you, that the innovation, the creativity of Somali people is quite enormous. And when I decided to come 2000 back in Mogadishu, I remember I go through, some of you might have this experience, Dubai was the only place to go through with a big Russian Illusion aircraft. I landed, I boarded that overnight, and I arrived at an airport called Abdulle, about 100 kilometers from Mogadishu, 2 hours drive, 3 hours drive from Mogadishu at the time. And as I landed, I have a small, beautiful Toshiba laptop satellite, a young man who was really excited about going back to Somalia. But the feeling I have at the time was that going back to Somalia with a laptop, probably the first thing they do when I arrive, they will steal your laptop. And I have my thesis, my documentation, everything that I have to offer. And I was really worried about it. So what I did while I was in Dubai, I took the back of the laptop, and I put into a grocery bag, those grocery bags you collect the food when you go to supermarket, put it into plastic bag, and stuff in other stuff into the bag, and I next 3 hours I worry about it. And you might ask the reason why I worry about it, because there are a number of reasons. One is that I left Somalia a long time ago, but secondly also, literally my entire family wiped out. As a result of civil war. My father was shot dead. He died the shot he got. My mother also died as a result of the related. Then all my family fled. Basically, I have nobody. So the laptop was might be something close to me at the time. Just go to Somalia and come back. But then I arrived with this aircraft. And some of you who know Abdulle, when you arrive Abdulle, there's a trees, because it's a very military old airport. As soon as I arrive at the airport, and I get out, the first step I get out, worry about my laptop, because laptop is not important. And really, what I worry about, am I still good, and someone might shot me dead at the airport. So what I did was that I came out, and as soon as I landed, the first step taken out of the aircraft, I remember a bunch of three Somalis sitting under a tree have a better, more moderate, sophisticated laptop than mine. And that was seeing their faces was quite shocking. So I was a bit embarrassed, because I was worried about very old, might be old to them. And these people are waiting to actually take the same flight back to, and these people want to take the same flight back to wherever they come, wherever they're going. But to me, that was really the shock of my life at the time, because I'm here, young man, worried about Somalia, just want to come in and get out, and worried about my old laptop, and suddenly you have these people have the most sophisticated laptop. Perhaps that was the beginning of realizing what Somalia had to offer. I think at that moment I was challenged. I was challenged by the environment, I was challenged by the people who really have better thinking than I am, perhaps more advanced than where I come from, Ottawa at the time. Nevertheless, I drove Mogadishu, and also my shock started when I go through the roadblocks from the airport. We went through about 30 roadblocks, young man, 15, 16-year-old, with a gun, I remember at the time. And these kids, whenever they stop you, they can actually shoot you if necessary. And that was a bit worrisome. So that is a period I came to Somalia, where really death was everywhere, where people were dying. The country is curved. It's more enclave, run by warlords. But you have a dynamic Somali team, young, who decided to come before me, set up radio stations. University was about to open, Mogadishu University, as I recall. Civil society getting better, and other issues. So what also, the need for Somalis to really have a better life was quite evident. You can see everywhere you go, despite the guns, despite the killings, people really want to offer something. And for me, someone who actually studied conflict management, coming back to Somalia, that is what really motivated me perhaps to stay. And now one might ask, why, what happened to Somalia as such? I don't want to go back to the history because it's necessary, but there are a few items I want to share with you before I conclude my topic. And one is that peace, what do you call stability and peace is like oxygen. You cannot deny one person, other person can get it. In other words, if you live one town and one place, one thing you have to learn is that living together is a very critical. And Somalis, in a very strange way, learn that. Despite the challenges we have, tomorrow, always we think about tomorrow. You can ask any Somali anywhere in the world and ask that, why don't you sell your house in Mogadishu 20 years ago? And he will tell you that tomorrow will be better. The problem is that tomorrow never came. It took us longer, but the feeling and what we call eternal optimism, feeling that being Somali itself is quite unique, the courage Somalis have. So the warlordism, the difficulty, the challenges Somalia have was quite calling for us, those of us, particularly those of us inside Somalia. And I want to perhaps reiterate the feeling that the peace itself was something that we always cherish, something we always yearn for, we Somalis. We worry about it, we're concerned about it. Even if we speak to each other, we use the word peace. But somehow we're also extremely passionate people, absolutely passionate. Because when you go through so much pain, empathy becomes important to you. You worry about others. The problem sometimes is that when you have too much pressure, it's hard to survive at that environment. So for the next 10 years, I think from 2000 to 2010, I think Somalia has gone through a very dramatic shift. One, you have a difficulty of economic progress. Sometimes you have challenges. And as you can see, people in Somalis, they go trees under trees. They meet everywhere they can meet and talk about peace and generate some kind of respect among themselves. Many people outside, they may have this negative. We Somalis are killers. The name Somali resonate violence, but that is not the case really when you come to know it. But in any event, a few years back, when you go to village levels, people come together. They talk about peace. No one recorded them. No one knows about them. But somehow they are everywhere Somali. Every day a Somali resolving their conflict without anybody else coming to the picture. And that is not, it's been lost in one way or another. Other issues you can see, even if the whole place is literally, as you can see this picture, if the whole place is a desert and there is not even one single shade tree, the one you have, you camp together and use that. And that tells you the commitment to peace. The idea that we are violent, we are people who are negative perception of the world, that is totally opposite of what Somalis are, one way or another. You can see kids discussing about issues, we do it. In a prime time life in the world, people might watch television, radios, and get opportunity to interact with each other. But in Somali context, this is our prime time. This is where we meet, where we talk and exchange ideas. Now, I would like to go to my final piece on this, and that is 15 years later, or maybe 22 years later of Somali conflict. One element that has been very fundamental that was missing Somalia in the Somali peace quest of Somali people was the issue of culture and arts. And that is the most important. Any society, in any given country, in the global, none of them has succeeded to get out the mess they are in without the culture and artists. It's well known in Germany, as many of you know it, in the history of Europe, the art is still, the value of art is extremely expensive of what painters did about 100 years ago, because it carries an important memory history. In the Somali context, 20 years we ignore, but 2011, for the first time, Somali National Theatre was open. And I was one of the people advocating the National Theatre. Many people said that why the hell theatre is important, because something else is more important. For us, the theater is a mirror of Somalia. Haile Selassie to all the way Fidel Castro, in between Michel Tito, to anyone you can talk about arrived. Theater was the place where Somali showcase. Whenever president come, head of state come or anyone come, we take to the theater, Somali dance music shown. And the idea is not the dance, the idea is sense of pride. That is where we are. And for us, without coming back to that reality, our pride will never come back. And finally, to some extent, it has been the very fundamental theater. So the Somali national band, Somalia has 6 national band, 9 actually, and we brought 4 of them happen to be military or government owned, and the other was private bands, and all of them we tried to revive them as much as we could, and now 5 of them are now performing globally. And this meeting, this opening National Theatre was the beginning of something good has to happen. And I think, perhaps I'm over-exaggerating this, but I think the challenge of Somalis and the beauty you see in Mogadishu today, and I'm sure many parts of Somalia, art has much to do with it. Somalia are poetry. When we're angry, we read poetry. When we are upset, we do the same thing. When we have kids, when we have a state of happiness, poetry has been the most important. This is where we can, I mean, art is not a singing itself. Art is a painting. Art has a combination of a number of things. But in particular in Somali context, art is a fundamental. When people sing, when the poetry reading, we cry. We respond to the emotions. And we thought, without which Somalia will never be able to recover. And believe me, happening in the theater, the day we opened the theater, we recall, you have almost 2,000 people show up. The theater doesn't have a seats. It's a concrete wall. The whole roof is off. There's nothing in there. There's no toilet, by the way. And somehow, when we announced the people to come, 2,000 people, beautifully dressed, as you can see, show up that day. And the program was live. Almost thousands and millions of Somalis watching globally. And that is, many people call me and ask me, that is the day that Mogadishu has changed. That is the day Somalia has changed. That is the day Somalia felt that sense of pride. And I think you have people, they took the best dress. And I remember a young man who met him at the theater at the time, and he asked me, Jabril, I don't know the National Theater because I'm 22 years old. I never hear theater. I have never seen a theater in the world. But the fact is that this was the theater itself, is a sense of pride on me. And I think that's what it is, because it brought people together. That's where it came from. And hopefully we built together National Theater. Now, finally, there's an issue that we also put, as my colleague Adan Afay talked about today, but the art is very important. So Somali artists have begun to emerge, as you have seen here today, and you have Mogadishu, when you go through, you see a lot of artists going around. Some of them are now being invited to New York and Los Angeles to perform and show it, because their artistic capacity is quite amazing, despite being in Mogadishu. So finally, what I would like to conclude probably is that this picture, my presentation. And this picture tells you where Somalia is today. You have half of Somali people, one individual, half being a skeleton and a very dangerous trajectory to go. And the other one is a peaceful area of Somalia. And what I see right now, we are this stage, the question for all of you watching and those who are here, should we go this way or that way? I think that question remains the commitment of every Somalia. Thank you very much.